All right. Well, James, welcome to the Home Services Growth Summit show. Tell us a little bit, if you will, about HomeBuddy and your company.
Hey, well, Shark, first of all, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on your show. A little bit about HomeBuddy. Started off as a media advertising company, been going for 14 years. However, the last 6 years is where they really found their sort of niche. Before they were creating leads for companies based on what they wanted, and then started really to understand that, oh, actually, we can do this really well. Getting these leads in for people is something that we do really well. So they pivoted towards looking at the home services categories, and spent 2 years really honing the skill of making sure that the business model was the right fit, making sure the product was really aligned at the sort of the values of the business. And a lot of people view HomeBuddy as a sort of market disruptor. And I think I've been with the company now for 2 years, and I see it as more of we're realigning what the marketplace should be, and the way the values should be aligned. And what I love about the company is our C-suite, our leaders, our leadership team walk the walk and talk the talk. I've worked for big companies where we have vision and mission, and it's sort of just written, but no one does anything about it. And the simple sort of version for HomeBuddy is the vision is to make home improvement a better place. It's a better experience, not just for the homeowner though. And that's the piece that's really important to me. It's for the contractor as well. Because, I think you'll probably know better than most that the experience for contractor over the last 10, 15 years hasn't been the best, right? There's some platforms out there that really don't really care about homeowner or contractor, more care about the dollar and what it is. And then the mission for HomeBuddy is just to create that friendly and trusted platform to connect homeowners with the right contractor. Now, if you think of it, that's probably the mission for a lot of the companies out there. But we really focus, we're really customer centric, which to me is really refreshing. I've been in this industry now for 10 years. I've been in sales and marketing for, you can tell by the whiskers, a lot longer than that, right? Probably 25, 26 years. And that's what attracted me to joining the company, was the sort of vision and mission, but not just the written on the paper, but the leadership actually believe in it and focus all their decision-making process on that.
Well, tell us a little bit about your career and background. I know several of you are in Atlanta. You've got teams working everywhere. You obviously have an accent from Marietta or Dunwoody. Everybody recognizes.
It's Roswell, actually, but well spotted.
Yeah.
A lot of people make that mistake. They think I'm from Marietta, but it's not. I'm from Atlanta, as they say up here. Yeah. So by the accent, you can tell that I'm not originally from here. Moved to the US in 2012 from Scotland. I was working in radio and marketing for the Guardian Media Group way back in 2004. And that was my first step into startups. The Guardian Media Company decided that they were going to launch new radio stations in the UK. And I was given the task of commercial sales director for building those sales teams and, selling the 30-second spots, the promotions, the sponsorships, all that sort of wonderful thing. And that was my first sort of step into really understanding scalability and how to do it with a well-funded company. Right? The Guardian Media Group has been going for a really long time. Then roll on to, I think, 2008, 2007, when we started seeing the sort of things fall off, right? And advertising is probably one of the first things that go. And then I was approached by this little unknown company called Groupon at the time. And they were sort of launching this idea of, hey, why don't we just discount everything and give it away? Which I thought was very novel at the time. But probably the timing was perfect because people were looking for a really good deal. So they'd been in the UK for probably 6 months down south in England, and they wanted to launch Scotland in the markets. And I was given that opportunity. And that was my first sort of step into a real blitz scaling company, right? Because Groupon just took off like wildfire. I mean, people know the story. I was with them for 2 years, and then I was asked to come out and build out the field sales division for Groupon in the US. So very fortunate. I got to come out here. They did the green card. They did all the paperwork and everything else. It was, a fantastic opportunity. And I was with them for a total of maybe 4.5 years. And then, moved on from that to another startup which I was with for about 2 years. They were acquired. Then another startup, which was way back in 2017. And then eventually ended up working with EverCommerce, which is quite a big player in the home services industry. Up until 2 years ago, went through IPO with them, and then I was approached by HomeBuddy to join them. So my background over the last, say, 20 years has been building companies up from either early stage startup, mid stage, or a company that wants to, they've really developed a product and they want to take it to the next level. So finding the right people for the right teams, training, coaching, scaling, and then taking it, taking a bigger market share than they started off with.
Sure. Well, let's talk about exclusive leads. I've introduced HomeBuddy to several different companies and know quite a few that were already using them, that your reputation's been really good in the marketplace. But part of that is because of the value you bring with bringing exclusive leads. And I'd really like to talk about what impact those exclusive leads have on set rates and close rates. If you will, kind of elaborate on that. People often lump all the third-party lead sources and aggregators all together to the point we were talking about earlier, but it can have a real dynamic impact, if you will, on set rates and close rates.
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? The exclusive leads, and I think a lot of companies, to your point, view sort of lump HomeBuddy in with the rest of the aggregators out there, and it's definitely not. It's been an education process over the last 2 years with contractors, because the mindset has always been, yeah, you guys are the same as the behemoths out there, just give them the lead and we'll work them. However, we spend a lot of time on creating that one lead for one company. And I think from I mentioned earlier on about that creator-friendly and trusted platform to connect homeowners with contractors. And the trust piece is, once the companies actually realize the value that we bring to the table with an exclusive lead, then all of a sudden that trust just raises up, and then we become almost part of the DNA of the company, because now they've got a good lead gen company, right? And to your question about conversion rates, so I always think of it this way. I've been on both sides of it. I've been a homeowner looking for a contractor, and it's not a great experience in the US at the moment, right? Because you'll go onto a platform, whichever one you choose, you'll do a form fill, and then it's almost like the gates are open. You get these phone calls 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day from 3, 4, 5 different contractors, and it's not pleasant. You almost want to just hit the pause button and go, okay, that's it. I don't want any more phone calls. So the fact that we take the homeowners, and it's almost refine the homeowner, look at them by drilling down on the zip code, making sure it's a fit for the type of service they're looking for, bring them to a form fill, qualify through a form fill, and they will take that one lead that we've qualified, and we will look at who are the contractors that we've now qualified, the contractors, based on our qualification process, to be on our platform. We'll then take that lead and hand it over to one contractor. So really what it does is it creates a much better experience for the contractor, because now they're not competing with 6 or 7 other contractors on the same lead, right? And ultimately what that does is it drives that whole piece of, I need to get to the lead first for the contractor, because I've paid for this lead, I want to convert as many as I can. And they end up going in with either lower quotes for the job to try and get through the door. And then sometimes, to a certain extent, you get that sort of bait and switch that happens where all of a sudden they came in with a lower quote and they have to find something to up that money. Otherwise, they're not going to make any margin, right? So with having one lead, you've got a much better chance of that homeowner saying, yeah, I want to do business with you. And as long as you can fulfill that at a good value, good service, and good product, then we're going to do business. So we see first of all, our average value job is higher than the other leads out there, because they're not having to discount and get into that sort of fastest to the bottom first, right? The conversion rates are higher because you've got a much better chance of converting with someone who's only speaking to 1 or 2 contractors than someone who's trying to speak to 6 or 7 or 8 of them, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that we see. And also, because the quality, we spend so much time in the front end with the quality, our set rates are higher. So if you've got a higher set rate coming through on the front end, that just falls all the way through to that waterfall of your conversion rates at the bottom end.
It sure makes you hope that everybody is looking very thoroughly at their set rate as well as their close rates. But, post FCC TCPA ruling on the lead generation loophole, when you look at just the third party lead sources. I think one of the benefits, I think, kind of go along with some of what you said, is that it retools some of the smarter brands out there to not just look at leads as a spaghetti source to see what sticks.
Good.
And so many of these people look at them as it's almost like, gold being filtered through a pan where the necessary evil is filtering through all the dirt and debris and the cheaper lead sources out there. And I think maybe that will change as they start to perceive their relationship with those customers a lot differently as well. Because now that you're paying a little more necessary focus on the value of an individual lead as instead of the volume of leads. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial point because so many companies focus on, I need a volume of leads to feed my sales engine. So I'm going to take them from all these different aggregators, where if you took a minute and reviewed your sort of data that you have from dispositioning your leads, and you realize that on this side we're converting much higher, and it could be 1 or 2%. That's all it takes to make a huge difference on the bottom line, right? If your raw lead conversion is 3%, you take it up to 4%. You take that 1% and do it across the year, what it turns out to, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what we try and do is more of a consultative approach with our sales team, where we try and educate to a point where, what if you focused on increasing your conversion rates by 2, 3, 4%? Instead of spending more money, convert the money that you're spending already. You can actually decrease your budget on leads instead of increase. And that's something that is a little bit of it's almost counterintuitive to some contractors because they're going, hang on a minute, I need to spend this amount of money to get this amount of leads. And that is correct. In this day and age, I think people have been sort of brainwashed to a state of, hey, you have to spend all that money to get it because your conversion rate is going to be this low. But what if you can convert higher? That means you can take budget and reduce your budget. You're still getting the same amount of business, if not more, by spending less because your conversion rates increase. So we spend a lot of time where we will take the disposition data from our customers. We will analyze it and we'll give that back to them and say to them, here's how you're performing. Here's where we see our benchmarks are here. You're slightly below. Let's help you try and increase your conversion rate. And that alone as a service is something that we don't charge for, but it helps because at the end of the day, the more conversions that the contractors get out of our leads, the better they're going to feel about it. And the more trust they'll have in us sending them quality leads, exclusive leads that they can convert. So to me, I think there's a lot of the time of try and focus more on increasing your conversion rates than just getting more leads from 15, 16, 17 lead aggregators.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how many times I've heard a company that I've worked with say, I need more leads versus the number of times they said, I need fewer but better leads. And if they'd say the latter, a lot of their problems would get solved, but that's never going to be, unfortunately, that's just never going to be said. So, well, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, on you go. I was going to say, one of the things is a fear factor, right? Because if you need 1,000 leads a week to feed your sales team, and all of a sudden you've got a company saying, well, actually, I only need 900 a week. Now you're going, whoa, hang on. I don't know if that's legit, right? So it's an education process. We've seen over the last 18 months, we're now seeing a lot of traction with companies that have implemented some of the changes we've recommended. And they're seeing some huge improvements on their back end where they're actually taking budget from other areas and putting it into lead gen, or taking some of the budget from lead gen and putting it into other areas where they can maximize.
Well, help define, if you will, the difference with the consent of consumers with what they're looking for versus the value they perceive when they go to a third-party site. So what I'm basically trying to say is if you go to a HomeBuddy or let's say even one of your competitors versus XYZ remodeling or brand company XYZ.com. There's a difference a lot of times when you go to HomeBuddy looking for a solution to your project versus going directly to that brand itself. And a lot of times, most people don't understand. They don't know who the brands are. They don't know who they are in their local market. But there is a difference to some degree in consent. And I think one of the things that what I've seen so far is that HomeBuddy is able to create a better experience that adds more consent than a normal third-party site. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So really, I think the difference between ourselves and other sites out there is that we spend a lot of time on the front end of our call to action campaigns or advertising for the homeowner. It's sort of an education process of a little bit about HomeBuddy and the credibility of HomeBuddy. So we sort of try and let them know that the way that we deal with this is we'll take your details and give it to one contractor. The problem is a lot of homeowners don't know that on other websites that's not the thing, right? Because they assume that it is. If I've said I want to deal with you, my assumption is that you're the person I'm going to deal with. And I think that's the huge change that's come now with the new legislation that's put in place, is that you can't hide behind the sort of the smokescreen anymore of what happened since 1991 when the TCPA law was put in place. And people saying, well, I'll just sell this on to other companies. They're not going to know the difference. And that sadly is the case. So we spend a lot of time of letting the homeowner know. And then what we do is we actually let the homeowner know who's going to be contacting them. So we'll tell them who the contractor is that's going to be contacting, which other sites don't do. They'll leave it up to wait until the contractor contacts them. And it could be 4, 5, 6 contractors, right? So I think the new legislation doesn't impact what we are doing because we've been doing it this way since we started. But it's really refreshing because now it almost it equalizes the playing field, right? Where my guys will have to up their game a bit to let the homeowner know that this is actually what we're doing. So I think it's the differential between ourselves and the other aggregators out there, or the platforms that are used, is that we actually try and be as truthful up front as possible and not try and hide anything at all.
Yeah, it's funny when you fill out a form at a lot of different sites, the next thing you'll get is a call from what shows up on my phone anyway is scam likely.
Yeah.
That's
exactly what happens.
Who it is.
Yeah,
So.
it happens a hell of a lot online when all of a sudden you just hit it and there's like 3 or 4 phone calls coming through, right? And it's robo-dialer attacks that are coming through, and it does come up as potential scam, telemarketing, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it is something we spend a lot of time on, and obviously costs us more money to generate the leads up. So we spend a lot of money making sure that we're doing it the right way, and I think now we're seeing that pull through on a lot of the work we're doing and the retention of our customer base.
Well, I spent a lot of time handpicking the right kind of partners to join us at this conference, and I really appreciate HomeBuddy being a diamond sponsor. I'm going to encourage everybody to go sit and meet with James and the rest of the team. But James, if they're not going to the summit, then where do they go and find out more about you and HomeBuddy and what you guys have to offer?
Well, first of all, we're really excited to be at the summit. I think it's going to be fantastic to be able to speak to the quality of the contractors that are coming there. We're excited to see a lot of our customers will be there already. There's a lot of people that aren't. It's just going to be fantastic. But if they're not there and they want to get hold of us, they can just go onto our website, homebuddy.com. And on the top, there's Become a Contractor. That will take them through to further a few questions. A couple of lines, takes a couple of minutes. And that you can actually book directly with one of our sales team to have a conversation. Or there's a phone number on there that you can actually call if you feel like speaking to someone, and that'll go through to one of our sales team immediately, and we can have a conversation, just explain to you who we are. And, we're not a fit for everybody. I'll say that up front. But those that we are a fit for, it's a really strong relationship, and we generate a lot of quality leads that turn into some fantastic business.
Or they can come to me and I'll be happy to make the introduction. So
there we go.
James, we're going to see some sharks that we wouldn't see normally in Scotland. It'll be a little bit warmer, hopefully, than it is right now at the time of recording. But James, thank you so much for joining us today on the Home Services Growth Summit show.
Sure, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, and I'll see you soon.